Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 7 Questions with V on Bella TV. I'm excited to be joined by none other than journalist, TV host, and style and beauty expert, Jennifer Chang. Welcome, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm doing so great. It's so good to see you again, Vanessa. I
I
loved meeting you. I
know.
felt like we were spirits.
I know. We connected in Austin, Texas. I've been following you on social media, and just like I was saying before we hopped on here on air, just how excited to see, how your career has continued to blossom and how incredible you're doing. You look amazing. You look amazing. So I'm
Thank
hoping that
you.
you share the tricks.
Yeah. Look
um,
good, feel good.
yeah, for sure. And this is a series that I do, whenever I find someone who has just a fascinating story, and especially in the media industry, just so that we can share a little bit of background to inspire others to do, to pursue this career and to do the same. So I want to get started by asking you, how did you get started in the media industry?
Okay, so I always knew that I wanted to be in media. I honestly, like, since I was a little girl, I was the one that was like, what is my career going to be? I'm going to dream big and I'm going to get after it. And honestly, in third grade, I had won a writing contest. And I was 8 years old, and my teacher pulled me aside at recess and said, promise me you're going to be a writer, because not a lot of people can write and you have that talent, and don't let it go to waste. So I was 8 years old and I was like, I promise you, I'll be a writer. And so it was from then on that I was like, well, I made a promise. Like,
Yeah.
it's already set. Like, I'm going to be a writer. And as I got older and I got really into fashion and beauty, I devoured magazines like it was my Bible. I realized that the career for me was really to be a magazine editor. And what was really important to me was that growing up, especially as an Asian girl, growing up in Houston, Texas, I never really felt like I was represented in magazines or in media. There was a time where we would look at magazines or on the movie screen, and celebrities did not look like what they look like today. Everybody was tall and willowy and Caucasian, and there were very few minorities. I mean, it was like Halle Berry or nothing, and everyone else was, it just wasn't diverse. And I always felt like that was just not what the world looked like. And for me, as a minority woman and an Asian American woman who knew that I had a voice, I had a skill set, I had talent to write and to share stories, that I wanted that to change. And I'm so proud that, honestly, in 2023, that media looks so different, that the red carpet looks so different than it did even 10 years ago. And if I had any part in that in deciding what was going to be on the homepage of a major website that I worked for, I can say that I'm very proud of it. So essentially, I always knew that I wanted to be an editor. I went to undergrad here at Pepperdine in Malibu, California. And I was interning like crazy. I interned at Women's Wear Daily. I interned at InStyle magazine. I interned at Neiman Marcus. I wanted to learn everything I could. I was really lucky because they let me actually write and get published when I was still a college student at major outlets like WWD. So I had a byline before I graduated. I had styled big photo shoots for women's wear. And I had a degree in journalism, and I had a double degree in public relations. So I was like, if all else fails, I'll be a publicist, but let's try the editorial route first.
Of course, yeah.
And luckily, yeah, it's been full steam ahead. So
Yeah.
I worked in New York right out of school. I worked at InStyle magazine and Real Simple. And then 18 years later, we've had a very robust career. I've lived in New York, LA, Paris, London, and Chicago. And I would say now, in addition to writing, I also do a lot of TV, which was sort of the North Star for me. I was like, okay, once I've mastered editorial and writing and having bylines in all of the big magazines and outlets, then let's try something more challenging. And TV was like the next big thing. And, as you know, Vanessa, like, it's a totally different skill set
Oh
than
my
putting pen to paper or writing.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it really helps. So if you are a writer, because you kind of know, I'm going to start like this,
Yeah.
I'm going to bring them in like this, and I'm going to round it out and give them a call to action at the end. But, being on air is so different. And I felt like that was really my sweet spot. It's where I really bring all of my expertise and my passion for fashion and beauty to life. And at this point, 18 years later, I've had so many experiences. I've worked for E! News, I've worked for the Kardashians, I've worked for InStyle magazine, People magazine. And now, I'm regularly on Access Hollywood as their style and beauty correspondent. So every day I pinch myself and I feel like I'm just living the dream.
Yeah. I mean, to hear your story, it's really, I can't help but feel connected because I'm an immigrant myself. And when I got to this country, I decided to pursue this career just because thankfully, my partner gave me the option that I could pursue my dreams, right? So I decided to just go for it. And just like you, a teacher encouraged me to be a writer because I'm a former educator by trade, and then I kind of
Right.
landed into this by coincidence, but also with a very strong writing skill. And I think that that's where it's kind of remarkable to see how many educators are actually in the media industry. And I've met so many along the years that I've been doing this. And I think it's our passion to just tell stories, connect to other people, and the fact that we can master, pen and paper, but at the same time, evoke emotion through that. And as you said, with TV, completely different ball game, and you have to have some sort of charisma, to be able to connect with your audience. So, and you've done it so gracefully, and you've done it so well. So, I love seeing you on air. I really do. Since I met you, I've followed you, and it's really exciting to see where your career has taken you. But let's get into the behind the scenes a little bit of what do you like the most and hate the most about this job? Because I always say this is, you either love this career, this industry, or you're going to really be miserable because there are so many ups and downs. But what would you say is your favorite aspect of it, and what is your least favorite aspect of it?
Okay, great question. I think my favorite aspect is that it's never boring. I
Yeah.
mean, every day is entirely different. I think you inherently should have probably be an extrovert. Like you have to be very social. I mean, a lot of my years when I was a red carpet reporter, I would be walking into very glamorous, star-studded events in LA that were very exclusive, but I had to go by myself. You don't get to bring a plus one. You can't bring your friends. Like everyone's like, that's so glamorous, but it's like you really have to rely on your own charisma, your own personality, and your own confidence. And I was doing this in my like mid 20s. So I got all those things out of the way where I was like, I can talk to anyone, I can walk into any room and feel comfortable. And it's my job
Yeah.
to get the interview or to get the quote and to blend in with a certain crowd. And so I think it's great that every day is different. You get to talk to great people, inspiring people. That's my favorite thing, is that especially when it comes to fashion and beauty, a lot of times I'm meeting the brand founder, or I'm learning what was the catalyst for them starting a brand or designing a collection, or what was that hole in the market that they felt like they could fill. And I love telling that story. And especially if it's a small business, especially if it's a minority owned business or a female founded business, I want to help them. Like I want to shout it from the rooftops. I want everyone to know about it. And, today in editorial, things are different. You can track sales. You can instantly see the influence that you have, whether it's on social media or in an online article or on a TV segment. And I know that because I gave them 5 minutes of airtime, or I wrote that one 500-word review, that changed their business overnight. And that's very fulfilling for me. And I think my least favorite thing about this is that being in media is all consuming. I mean, we don't really get time off. Like I always remember for years, my entire
Yeah.
career, like holidays, like things were, if you're a doctor or if you're an accountant or something very traditional, you say office is closed and nobody bothers you and you can like take off for 2 weeks and enjoy your holiday. But I worked at a news bureau, and during holidays, weekends, evenings, that's when things happen. That's generally when celebrities decide to announce that they're pregnant or do something crazy or throw, and that's when the news gets picked up. And so I've always felt like I had to be on, even when, office hours were not technically, we have no office hours. Our office hours are all the time. And that's sort of maddening. But I think that, what I tell people that want to go into this world is that you have to love it. Like, you have to love it. This has to be your professional life as your personal life. And it should feel fun every day. And if you have that passion, even though it's going to be all consuming, it really will be fun and fulfilling. And that's, I think, when you know that you found your sweet spot.
That's a great answer because I mean, and the reality is that it is, I mean, when you connect with someone who understands it and really is as passionate about it as you are, we get it. Like I hear you talking and I'm like, yep, that's exactly it, and, it's hard because like, I know my kids, cause I have kids, and they will say to me, but you're the boss, you can turn it off. And I'm like, I really can't. I gotta call the
Yeah.
editor and tell her that she's got to go cover XYZ. So,
Yeah.
it's really all consuming, but like you said, I wouldn't have it any other way. I think the opportunities that have come into my life because of this industry have just been, things that I dreamt about, as a little girl back in the Dominican
Yeah.
Republic. So I'm grateful
Oh,
for that. Okay, what has
same.
been the best piece of advice that you've gotten, and also the worst piece of advice that you've gotten?
Oh my gosh. The best.
to make
Okay,
to
let's
make it
start
in
with
this industry, because I've heard, I've heard some really great advice, and I've heard some really awful advice also, and I've been like, my God, had I listened to that person, I wouldn't have been, where I am right now.
right. Ooh, I think the best piece of advice for me was I remember when I was in high school, and it was from my older brother, actually, who's my best friend. And he's not in this industry at all, but he grew up with me. He knew my passion. He knew how just determined I was. And I remember when I was first interviewing for a big internship, and I was nervous because I was like, I'm going to go against all these other people, and they may be smarter, they may be this, they may be that. And he was like, you are so passionate. Whatever you do is you walk into that room and make sure you don't leave until everyone in the room knows your passion and your talent for what you want to do. And that's all you have to worry about. And I think I've held on to that forever. 10 years ago, Vanessa, like TV, like being on air for me has been the biggest dream, because
Yeah.
10 years ago, I was told that I will never be on camera. I really was told by a network, like, maybe you'll be on camera one day, but not for us. And it was like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
And it was really because, it wasn't as diverse, it wasn't as inclusive as things are today. And if I had listened to that advice, like, okay, like I tried, I'm just going to go back and to my desk and be a little typer bee and never try again, I would not be living the dream that I am today. And I think that was the worst advice. Like someone telling me no, telling me that you can't because they decided that I wouldn't. And I listened to the back of my head where my brother had told me when I was a teenager, you have the talent and you have the passion, unlike other people. Like you will do whatever you want to do. And I held on to that, and I kept going, and I kept hosting anything I could. I hosted community parades. I hosted fashion shows in the mall. I hosted, small potato things now comparatively to national television. But I was like, I'm just going to keep going because I love it. And maybe I won't be on TV one day, but I love connecting with people. I love sharing tips and tricks and helping people feel more confident through fashion and beauty and products. And if I influence one woman at the mall or somebody at the community weekend festival, then I feel like that was my purpose. And luckily I kept going, and more opportunities kept opening up and opening up. And now I'm on national TV every week, sometimes more than once a week. And that feels very fulfilling, but it's never lost on me that doors were closed on me, that it was never overnight. Like, I think that's the other thing I want to say is that a lot of people starting out now, if they're, obviously much younger than us, they think that things happen overnight, or all I have to do is share a contact and they'll be doing the same thing next week too. And it's not like that. It was literally like a very slow burn, and it took a lot of sacrifice, like the amount of weekends and holidays and evenings that I gave up so that I was, continuing to break the story or to show up at the event because I wanted to form that relationship or, make headway with a certain publisher or something like that. That's because in the end of the day, this was my calling. I knew it. And it might take 10 years or it might take longer, but it feels so much sweeter than if someone had just, if a door had opened up 10 years ago so easily, if you know what I mean. Like there's
No,
something
for
sweet
sure.
about, yeah.
working for it,
Yeah.
right? Like, there's something really sweet about working
Yeah,
for it.
remember that?
Remember that thing called work?
Yeah, we gotta roll.
Yes.
Yes, we gotta roll
Yeah.
up your sleeves, kids. Let's
Yeah,
go.
you do. It's interesting because I heard a lot of no's when I had my because I pursued this career, especially in the TV world after becoming a mom, and I heard many times where it was you're gonna have to pick one or the other. You can't do both, and I was just like, screw that. Like, like, who's making up these rules? Because I don't.
Yeah.
Like, who's making this up? And I remember showing up with my baby to meetings, and it was like, it's either this or not showing up at all. And I'm here and I want this and I am perfectly capable of doing this. And my baby's in the corner making everybody smile. So he kind of helped along the
Yeah.
way. But yeah, it's just it's great that you point out that it does take a lot of work and consistency and showing up, and that it does not happen overnight. Because yes, I think that a lot of young people today are under the impression that there's this instant, just like there's instant gratification with things, like there's instant career boosts, and it just it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It
Right.
does- yeah. What would you say, if any, is a misconception that people have about you?
Ooh, I think that people might assume that number one, I may be superficial, or that I may be um like not I don't know. I think because of fashion and beauty, you kind of have this illusion that you're very, you're an airhead, or you don't have real thoughts. Or I've been asked so many times, did you even go to college? Like, did you go to school, before they get to know me? And I'm like, oh, I went to grad school. Like, I went to big schools. And but it's like, I think that's what it is. And I also think that people assume that my identity is my career. And I
Yeah.
think that, like I said earlier, obviously this job is very consuming, but it's not my identity. I love what I do, but it's not who I am. And I think the key to longevity in this industry is to stay grounded. Like, my closest friends are not in the industry. I have a circle of girlfriends in LA, and we're all in completely different industries. We get together, we hype each other up, and we have just genuine support and love for each other's industries and endeavors. And that is so special to me. And I'm an auntie. I have three nephews and three nieces, and I love being around my family. And I still am so close to college friends that knew me when I was 18, 19 years old. And, nobody knew what we were doing at the time. And those are the relationships that I cherish. Yeah. And I think that part of why I've been able to stay in this business so long and not spiraled out of control is because I stay really grounded. Like, I know who I am. I very much like try to keep my feet on the ground. I travel a ton, which is a wonderful way to reconnect back with yourself.
Yeah.
And I know that at the end of the day, this could all go away, and everything could change. And this is not the end all be all. It's been an amazing ride, and I feel grateful every day of every opportunity. But I think that's really the key to it. You've got to stay kind, and you've got to stay nice. And I remember people who were not always kind to me, and now I sit next to them at an event or at a, exclusive dinner, and I'm still kind. Like, I feel like you just have to pay it forward, even
You're
if
like, hello,
that wasn't
sir.
always
Hello, ma'am.
yeah.
Nice to see you. Nice to see
Remember?
you. Yes. Remember that time? Because I do,
Yeah,
but it's okay. You can sit with us. It's okay.
We're gonna move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
think just
love
stay
that.
kind and work
Yeah.
hard.
I love that
Yeah.
you said something really, really key, because I feel like that is, part of the misconception, I think, too, with this industry, is that, that you are, once you're like on TV or you're around celebrities, or like, you become this persona that you're like untouchable or like obnoxious, or simply just not genuine or real, when it's on the contrary. Just like you said, I too firmly believe this can all go away tomorrow, and you have to have something to fall back on if it does. So what,
Yeah.
you need to, like, because that's a huge reality check. If then you're sitting there like, okay, what do I do now with my life now? So
Right.
that's truly remarkable that you've been able to stay the course, but also understand that, if it all does go away, you still have something to connect with, and it's yourself. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's yourself, your true self. So that's a beautiful thing. What nugget of wisdom would you share to anyone starting out? I know you shared about, that it is an overnight success, but what else can you share with someone who's wanting to get into this industry, especially after all the changes, even through the pandemic? Like I feel like we've become um multifaceted journalists because we've had to, right? Like we were kind of
Yeah.
used to doing things a certain way, and then the pandemic happened, and all of a sudden I had to take out my phone and film because I was out, and this is what we had, and there was no crew.
Right.
So this is what you have to do to get the story. So what would you say to someone who's starting out and wants to get their foot in the door?
I think to your point, it's to be versatile. There is no like set way on how to get to your success. And I actually told this to a girl who sometimes asks me for advice. She's, I kind of am a mentor to her. And she said, I want to be successful like you. And I said, your success is dependent on what you deem is successful. Like what you think is successful for me may not be applicable to you. Therefore, you shouldn't like measure what you're doing to what I'm doing, because we're all different and you don't know what story is to be untold with your career. So I think for me, like being really versatile, saying yes to opportunities that maybe weren't exactly what you had in mind, but you might surprise yourself. I mean, after being an editor, I think it was around year 13, I had been on this track of like climbing up the masthead. I had bounced to all these big national outlets. And then at one point, a beauty brand reached out to me and they wanted me to go in-house and be their director of PR and move to Chicago. And that was not my trajectory. I was like, I don't do PR, I'm an editor.
Right.
But this company was so determined. Like they saw it clearly. Like they were like, no, this is going to be, a really great ride for you. We're on the brink of amazing things, da 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 da. And I eventually said yes to the universe. And I took a leap of faith and I moved to Chicago and I worked for a startup. And in that 2 years, I learned that I had way more skills than just writing and editing and publishing and reporting. I
Yeah.
learned, that I could throw an event. I knew that I could network like crazy. I built a makeup artist program with all the celebrity makeup artists. We won industry awards. I was on an infomercial. I did QVC. I mean, I learned so many more skills that if I had said no and folded up my arms and just stayed stubborn and like, I'm going to do this and no one's going to tell me otherwise, I would not have known that I have more skills. And now, I can easily, if the world falls apart and I have to go into a PR job, I can do that. And I actually consult for a lot of brands now in that capacity because I have that experience under my belt. And you have to be versatile. We never know what's going to happen. Media has changed even in 2 or 3 years of what it used to look like, and I guarantee you it's going to continue to evolve. So if you're starting out, I would go where the momentum is. If it's TikTok and social media and affiliate links and e-commerce, like learn it, master it, be really good at it, because even though you might not have the years as somebody more superior, if you can master the skills that the older people maybe don't know as well, you can climb your way that way and carve out a new niche for yourself and be the master of that. So I would just say, like, continue to be versatile, keep an eye on where the momentum is, and believe in yourself. And again, work hard and stay kind, because
Yeah.
that will get you through anything.
Everything. um what has been, and I know this is a hard question because I can only imagine, your favorite interview thus far that you've done in your career, that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I landed this and this happens and I have it, I have the proof.
Yeah. Okay. Let me think. Favorite interview. I've interviewed so many celebrities. Tom Hanks was a joy because he genuinely is like the nicest person. The person that you see on the big screen is who he is in real life.
Yeah.
And that was just refreshing. I think I was at a very, very exclusive frou-frou industry event, and Tom was just real and kind and warm to me. And at the time I was very junior, and that made a really big impression on me. I've interviewed Jennifer Lopez, and that was incredible. I actually went to Doha in the Middle East, and I covered her first Middle East performance, and that was life-changing in a way because it's J-Lo.
Of course.
And I was also senior editor. Yeah, I was senior editor to Kim Kardashian and Kourtney Kardashian. At one point in my career, the girls had apps a couple of years ago, and I was the lead on content for both the sisters. So that was just fun because I grew up obviously watching the show like everybody. I have a lot of sisters in my family,
Yeah.
and we all have J names. Like, and we were always like, oh, you're the Kourtney, you're the Kim, and I was the Kim in our family. And I got to
How
work
convenient
directly with
for
Kim.
that.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I've won the lottery. Like this feels very fulfilling. But yeah, but I like to that same point. I also love meeting other editors like you. I like people that know the hustle, I feel like we're kind of the unsung heroes,
Yeah.
In a way in the industry.
Agreed,
And
which
I
is
think
why I
that,
love doing this,
yeah,
because I feel like there is so much more that really, that people don't really understand that goes into, the final story or the final cut that you see. And at the end of the day, we are people too, and we are trying to
yeah,
do our best and get the scoop, but also get it and also showcase it in a way that connects with our readers and our followers, so that it's a good story to read or a good story to share. And I love that.
yeah.
Last but not least, is how can people connect with you? How can people find you? How can people consult with you if they wanted to? Because I feel like you have, even through this interview, I've learned so much more about you, and I'm so happy that we did this. How can they learn more about you and how to get in touch with you?
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored to be here. The same way that you and I felt like found each other and stayed in touch is Instagram. I feel like that's how you kind of get to know someone 360 now. And I'm very active. So my Instagram is Jenn Chan, Chan, glam, Jenn Chan glam. And that's the best way. My email is also attached to my Instagram. And if you want to consult with me, I'm happy to. I've done all kinds of things within fashion, beauty, and celebrity. So I'd love to hear from all of you.
Well, this was a treat, and I'm so glad that you said yes and that we did this. And I look forward to seeing you continue to grow and connecting even more in the future.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. It was so good to see you. And thank you for having me on Bella TV.